Okay, I have to say, ever since I started this podcast, I actually went in a bit of a rabbit hole with all sorts of things that might mean creating your business from the place of freedom, from the place of your power, those kind of things. And what's funny is that I keep finding all new things all over the place. It's just unbelievable how many ways you can actually access your center, your power, and run your business from a completely different place with a completely different energy. And today I have yet another topic, a new one, never discussed on my show. And first of all, welcome to the new episode on From Grind to Grace. My name is Edita, and this is the show for the alternative entrepreneur, the entrepreneur who's ready to challenge the norm, flip the script, and choose freedom first. When freedom is not a destination, when freedom is the path, because when you stop grinding and start creating your business from the place of freedom, success tags along. So, the mission is to make this the new standard in our industry, the default for yourself, for your children, and for humanity. And the big question I'm asking and exploring on this podcast, how do you do it? And that's what I ask my guests. And today I have the amazing, the lovely Marina Beech together with me, who agreed to tell me all about something that I personally don't know much about. And this is going to be very juicy, very interesting. I'm so excited for this conversation. Welcome on my show, Marina. Happy to
Thank
have you
you.
here.
Thank you, Adita, and what an amazing introduction with regards to your purpose and mission, with regards to how we have this opportunity to do business. I loved that. So yeah, very inspiring. So thank you for having me here on your
Yeah, you're so right. Like we are so blessed to be working the way we are working and to be accessing things that so many people still don't know about,
yeah.
which make the way we work much easier, much more fun. Do you agree?
Absolutely. We can be more playful, more, and it opens up, yeah, like you say, opportunity and curiosity to see what others are doing and see whether that feels right for us or not, and really step away from the duty and the obligation that can come with the old ways of doing business, or having those habits and behaviors and maybe the programming or the beliefs when you also come from corporate, because I've come from corporate. I
Mm.
spent 30 years in corporate, so that has meant me unpicking quite a lot of um, conditioning that I've brought into my business because I've never done business before. But
Yeah.
it meant that I needed to really, yeah, release that and start over and kind of get used to new things, new processes, new cycles of how things, like money flow. That was a big thing for me because I was used to a consistent wage coming into my bank account. And so when you go into business and then needing to work out how to calm your nervous system and understand what your cycle and pattern is of money flow in, money flow out, the highs and lows of inconsistent income, that has been quite a journey for me.
Yeah. And so I will let you introduce yourself. And I guess the angle I always love taking is how did you end up doing what you're doing? What is that you do? And how you actually ended up doing this?
Sure. So I'm a spiritual business owner for those that are curious, and I'm in my 8th year of business, and I work primarily with New Earth leaders, heart-led female entrepreneurs who are wanting to make impact in their business with their clients and in the kind of collective and for humanity as a whole. And I really help to support those particular people with either through one-to-ones, releasing karmic patterns and outdated programming, beliefs, whatever it might be, so that they can have their next like big breakthrough. But I also teach, so I'm a massive advocate of the Akashic Records, which is my main tool that I use from a spiritual perspective. And I'm a big fan of teaching others how to empower themselves for their own breakthroughs or for their client breakthroughs. So I have kind of two sides to my business. I either serve and support, or I teach. And with the teaching, I have 2 certifications. I have an oracle card deck because I'm a fan of creating these tools, these empowerment tools to help. My journey into this, because I've said 30 years corporate retail, really proud of my career, was kind of like traveling all over the world doing what I did. And my actual job was quite niche. I was kind of like visual merchandising, you know, in the old traditional days, it was like the window dresser, interior designer. So I've kind of done all of these elements. And yeah, I was at the top of my game. And then I got made redundant. And then I got made redundant again. And then I got made redundant again. And it was like, okay, after the 4th redundancy, it was like, okay, clearly I'm not supposed to be doing that. So
Right.
what am I here to do?
Were you into the stuff that you're doing, like Akashic Records at
No,
the time, or
I'd never heard of the Akashic Records
right?
up to that point. So just a kind of little background. I've always been interested in the occult, tarot cards, ghosts, Ouija boards, you know, all of those things.
Did you say ghosts?
Ghosts, spirit. Yeah, so I always had a fascination with stuff that was unseen, unknown, you know, that was a bit, you know, mysterious. I've always had a fascination with that. I had my first deck of cards in my late teens. I had my first pendulum when I was in my early 20s. So I've always been reading cards in a fashion, tarot cards, from my early 20s, late teens, early 20s. But it was never really done intuitively. It was always done like from the book, you know. So I wasn't really using my intuitive gifts or anything like that. But the interest was there. But career was you know, I wanted to really make something with my career. So that was my massive focus. So the redundancies eventually led me to getting onto my spiritual path in a deeper way. And funny enough, I connected with angels as my first thing, which is really interesting because I'm not religious in any shape or form. I'm not baptized or christened. So I've not grown up with that particular background, but angels were calling me. And so my first spiritual mentor, who was like a spiritual business mentor as well, she very much connected with angels. So she did a lot of angel work. So she was my introduction into, firstly, a spiritual business, but also angels. And I've kind of, on reflection, realized that there was a lot of stuff that I needed to heal, things that I just wanted to start to discover. So I think I'd kind of gone into seeker mode. And I was really then, obviously, because I kept getting made redundant, I wanted to understand what was my soul of purpose and mission, you know. So really my ego was like, okay, well, we need to find something else to do because, you know, that career is now ended. So this is the path that you want to be on, but what are you going to do? So there was this massive kind of like drive from my ego to find the thing. And when you're coming from that place, then that thing can be very elusive. And so I wasn't finding the thing. And it was about 18 months into being on that path that the Akashic Records found me, because I was maybe not seeing the signs or whatever it might be. So I ended up having a psychological addiction to alcohol cleared from my Akashic Records in 10 seconds with a pendulum. And that was done on a Facebook Live. So obviously the lady couldn't see me. She had my details. She opened up my Akashic Records. She found this master program of alcoholism. She knew nothing about me. She cleared it, and I could feel the switch go off in my head, which was the thing that was filling my day with constant conversations of how I was not going to have a drink when I went home. What would I do to fill my time? There was a lot of shame and guilt when I did succumb to having like one beer, because my physical intake had been really reduced, but I couldn't switch the mental part off. So there would be then a lot of shame, a lot of guilt if I then went out to the pub and had a beer. You know, what's wrong with you? Why can't you control this? You know, all of these types of conversations, that all disappeared in that 10 seconds. And my intention for watching that live was to find out my soul purpose and mission, because that was my thing. And indirectly I found my soul purpose and mission, because that was the transformation, that was the catalyst, that was the breakthrough that I needed to actually then have the mental space to actually then start to look at the things that I didn't even have time to look at, you know, to stop numbing out all of the things that I was using alcohol for. It allowed me to then really start to open up, look at those things, but also start to understand what the Akashic Records were, because I'd never heard of them. And so that was my journey then into learning about the Akashic Records. So that was in 2017. So it will be 8 years in June that I have been sober from that particular live on Facebook.
Wow, that is very interesting. So I think the main keyword for this episode is Akashic Records, right? So I'd like to dive into what exactly is that?
Yeah, what are they? I had the same question. I was like, what are these? So
Ah,
the Akashic Records, we all have an Akashic Records, and they're basically they're like a library for your soul's journeys. So this is why I have a library behind me, because it's indicative of what we, from a very kind of human perspective, how we can imagine what the Akashic Records are. But they basically record every choice, every consequence, every thought, decision, feeling, experience, relationship, memory that you've ever had in any incarnation from your soul's creation. All of it is recorded in your Akashic Records. And so it's easy to just imagine that it's a library, and each book is like a lifetime's worth of information. So you can go in into your Akashic Records through various means. As I say, we've all got an Akashic Records, and because we're a certain level of consciousness now, the planet has ascended, we have ascended as a human race, we are now more likely, more able to be able to access the Akashic Records. Prior to that, it was only people like saints and prophets and high priests and high priestesses that were able to even, you know, have the consciousness to even get into the Akashic Records. But we all have one. Our pets have Akashic Records, our homes have Akashic Records, our businesses have Akashic Records, the country has her own Akashic Records, you know, the world has her own
right.
Akashic Records. So we can go into these records to find blocks, karmic patterns, trauma, contracts, vows, anything that we are ready to release at a soul level, that we can bring awareness to, bring a consciousness to, that we are able to release, that we are ready to release. We can find those in the Akashic Records, and we can ask for the energetic hold to be cleared, to be healed, to be transmuted, transformed, released. And so we're not changing the history, because we can't change the history of what we've done, but we can change the influence that that particular choice of taking a vow of poverty, for instance, 20 lifetimes ago, because we felt that we had no choice. We can then release the energetic vow of poverty, so that we can then step into, in this lifetime, into maybe a sense of feeling more worthy and deserving of abundance, because we don't have a vow of poverty where we've vowed to be poor, to be in lack, to be in scarcity, because it was the thing that we needed to do at that time. So we're releasing the energetic hold of these choices and decisions that we've made, all the experiences, the trauma, the persecution, we've had very colourful lifetimes, and there is still going to be either ancestral influence or personal influence, and we can even have collective influence that impacts our energy field and our choices and decisions today. So the Akashic Records is for me the number one empowerment tool that we all have available to us, that we can start to utilize for our life, our relationships, our health, our business. So I'm kind of like, why wouldn't we be using our Akashic Records to help us? Because we've all got access to it.
Okay, so, and you work with business owners, right? So
Yes.
exactly what aspect of being a business owner do you work with? What happens for people for them to start looking for some sort of help to unlock something, and how they end up working with you?
So usually there is a sense of feeling blocked, not being able to move forward, maybe with their money flow. So there's like a glass ceiling. It could be client attraction. It could be that they're just feeling a shift in their business and the business just doesn't feel aligned to them anymore. It might be that they're just transitioning from corporate or a job of some kind, and then they want to step into a business. So there's different levels of people that would come and see me. And so generally money flow and money blocks is the main one that people would come and see me for, client attraction and money flow. And I would work with their Akashic Records open, and this is before we get onto a call together. I would have their business records open, and I would find out what are the specific blocks that are not supporting the intention that the client has. So it's always very specific to what it is that they want to achieve, what they're actually going to actively work on after the session, because we still have to embody the energy healing. We still have to take action, because it's not, we can't wave the magic wand and everything is just then unicorns and rainbows. We've got to do the hard work, as it were, but in the most aligned way. It's not hard work. We've got to put a little bit of effort in, and we've got to get uncomfortable, because usually change is part of that process, and we know that our ego doesn't like change. So we are going to have to step into our growth zone a little bit and get uncomfortable. But when you have your energetic blocks, the karmic blocks, whatever it might be, released, it is easier. It is easier to step into that next level of identity. Usually identity is a part of this process that the business owner normally needs to step into a new identity. And there is this process of releasing the old identity, which again can be messy. It can feel uncomfortable, because the ego is holding on to the old identity, because it doesn't know what the new identity, what that means. And there's this there's the discomfort that is connected with that. So there's mindset work, usually there's strategy part of that process, and there's the energy healing. So but it's always
Mhm.
energy, strategy, energy. We've always got to, for me, it's that excuse me, it's that formula: energy, strategy, energy. Your energy's always got to be there before the strategy.
Right. And so, so many people, if not most people, actually, when something is not working, they
Mm.
tend to go looking for another strategy, method. There is so much noise about these things. How do people know that they should look beyond, look for something different, and potentially in terms of becoming a different person?
I think I think it comes down to being honest with yourself and recognizing what you've tried up to this point, or what used to work no longer works. Excuse me. And then it's admitting that something else needs to happen
Mhm.
here. And I think once we admit that things are not working the way that they used to, or I've not tried, I'm just looking in the wrong places, I'm trying other people's strategies, and I'm not actually them. So from an alignment perspective, that's not going to work. And I think it's at that point where you can admit to that to yourself. And it's like, okay, well, if I've not tried any energy work as part of the strategy, then that would be my first like port of call is what can I do from an energetic perspective to release some of the stagnant energy, block energy, even if you don't believe in past lives. That doesn't matter. Akashic alchemy, Akashic healing, past life healing, it all still works. Even if you don't believe in it, it still works. It's just about having that open mind and that curiosity. And I think when some people are feeling that desperate because they need to make a change, something has to be done because they have this real passion about their business, but it's just something is just not working. They will be open to trying
Mhm.
some energy healing. And not all energy healing perhaps is going to resonate because I mean there's lots of different types, you know. So really it's about also tuning in before you make your decision, have some discernment, uh, get back to center and tune into the person's energy that you're maybe considering signing up with. And you know, if you kind of don't know what that is, it's just like, well, go and do some research about them. Go and look at their testimonials. What are people saying about them? Do some research, do your homework before you say yes to maybe going down that road, especially if you're kind of not sure and it's not something that you would normally do, then go do your research. If it's somebody that has a good reputation, then you know that they would be happy to definitely share testimonials with you. They'll be happy to have a chat with you, get on a call or whatever, just to answer those fears, those questions that you might have. And just know that with any energy work that we do, if it's coming from a person that is integrity and has good ethics about what they do, then everything is done for the person's highest good, and they're never going to get anything more than what they're available for in terms of clearing, healing, and release. So do your due diligence when you're working with somebody that is doing energy healing.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's so true. I remember I was the one thinking to myself, I know all the strategies. I'm this freaking good world class marketing expert,
Yeah,
you know. And I'm like, oh my God, why are things being so slow?
yeah,
What is
God,
going on? And it's
yeah.
and I remember thinking this is the an inside job.
Inside
And
job, yes.
after like I've been doing like every entrepreneur personal development for the whole duration of my journey, right? Like still. And still I was sitting and thinking, oh my God, this is in the inside job. And I need to go back to the basics, probably.
Yeah,
Maybe I missed something, I skipped something. And then the default was, I think I for the first time in years, I took Think and Grow Rich first, right? So obviously there are different directions you can go, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah,
so I was doing those things again. I was still doing the usual things in terms of personal development until a certain point when some very personal experience happened, and then everything else is history, and then this podcast and everything, everything started clicking. So I'm just wondering, in terms of what kind of people come to you and why they come to you specifically, they might be, they might have had different experiences, I
hmm,
guess,
yeah.
or were they on the mainstream personal development path before coming to you, or what's the situation?
I would say the main are already in a spiritual business or a kind of healer. So they would be doing all of the things, but they're just finding that they're just not able to clear or shift whatever the thing is. And so they just want, you know, when we're kind of like doing this work for each other from this perspective, it's like getting a fresh pair of eyes on the situation because they've tried it all sorts of ways. They've tried it with their modalities. They may have even done it with the Akashic Records. but they're still not connecting to the root cause. And sometimes that might be because the ego, the subconscious is getting in the way, you know. So it's like getting a fresh pair of eyes on the situation, looking at, you know, looking it over, which is fabulous. Um, as I say, some of the people that are not in a business at all will still come to me for healing, and it's usually because they've got some kind of health issue, or they're just not being able to pull themselves out of this kind of like swamp that they feel like they're in, and they just want, again, somebody else with a different perspective, a different set of eyes, a different skill set to go in and activate some clearing for them, so that they have, it's almost like they get a leg up, so that they can then do their own bits and pieces, the strategies that we share, the embodiment actions, so that they can continue then to get this momentum and they can get moving again. So it really does depend where the person's at. But I think just a fresh pair of eyes on the situation, I think, is often what is needed. And the people that I attract, as I say, there's all different types of people that will come to me, and that I've served over the years. But it's energy. Energy speaks to energy. So whatever they are attracted to in me, they've picked up either through my marketing, but it's my energetic frequency that's in that, or I'm doing a live and they can pick up my energy that way. That's why I'm quite visible on social media, because I'm transmitting my energy. I'm giving value, of course, but it's my energetic blueprint that is going out there, and that's what people are picking up on.
Yeah, very interesting. You know, I think energy is such an overlooked aspect of running a business and doing marketing and selling.
Absolutely.
People kind of know, they kind of know that you need to show up like, and I think they put it down to being confident, you know, maybe doing it with conviction, you know, there are all these words, but well, I believe what's underneath all of it is your actual energy that we have without even realizing, we
Yeah,
transmit without even realizing,
yeah,
right? It,
yeah. And
yeah,
that's why when you were saying about it being an inner game, you know, for our external transformation to happen, it's got to be an internal, you know, because it's a mirror. That's what people are picking up on, and that's what the client attraction really is if you are somebody that is, you know, doing the inner work and it doesn't stop. There's always something that we, you know, we discover or we go a little bit deeper with, and that's okay. You know, we're all on this journey together. But if we are at a position where we've done quite a bit of inner work and we're able to then serve from that space or teach from that space, that's very magnetic, you know, and it's also giving people permission that to put ourselves first in that way, to make sure that our cup is filled up, make sure that we are nourishing and nurturing the body, that we are taking, you know, some kind of, like, there is some kind of balance, whatever that is for you.
mm,
That shows up in your energy, and that's what people are usually attracted to, even though they don't know it. They want a piece of that. They want to understand how it is to live from that energy, and we all have that capacity, but I think what we transmit out is really important, and that's why it's key to have
mm.
self full. And that's the thing that helps you marketing, I think.
Yeah, you know, and I want to touch on something, just something dawned on me, and something very tactical, actually. You know, all the videos, the shorts,
Hmm.
and it's they're shorter and shorter and shorter, and it feels like everyone is trying to be everywhere, squeezing uh, what they think is a lot of value into shorter and shorter videos, and everybody's shouting and moving fast and say and talking fast. Whereas then, I guess, then you need to be everywhere because what you're transmitting. First of all, you're not being yourself when you're trying to squeeze all the words into, you know, whatever short space of time you have.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, sometimes you come across a simple Facebook Live or something, and the person, and I remember back in the day, I just remember somebody was telling me I was very slow. I was speaking very slow. And I still remember that. It affected me.
Oh, right, okay.
Except now I don't care, but back then it did.
Yeah, yeah.
But then you see these videos and or you go to a master class and there are a lot of pauses, there's a lot of silence, and yet you are still there, yet you still want to be there, right? What are your observations about what is happening in marketing these days?
I agree that the short term or the short form video, the Black Reels and TikTok and all of that, that it does mean that there's, gosh, 100 times more noise and distraction out there, and that's where discernment comes in for us in terms of what we are ingesting or digesting. Um, so I think there is definitely, yeah, everything is sped up, everything is more crammed in. I totally agree with that. And there is then that kind of obligation almost to keep up with that particular trend because
Mhm.
it's going to be, that is going to be, well, this is how I need to do marketing at the moment because it's what everybody else is doing, and I definitely, I'm doing loads of reels at the moment, and my VA kind of makes them all look pretty and stuff like that, but they're not very long. And that's been a really interesting journey for me because I can go on a live and I can easily speak for an hour, but people don't have that time anymore unless they're getting a one-to-one card reading, which I'll do once a month. But yeah, I can go on a live and just talk the hind legs off a donkey, because there's always something, and I'll go into channel a lot and I'll just channel stuff through. But people don't have the time for that unless they're really invested in you as a teacher or a mentor or a guide of some kind. And I think those people have been in your world, in your community for quite a while, where they can give you that time and space. So it really does depend, I think, in terms of what you're using your marketing for. If you're talking to a cold audience, a warm audience, or a hot audience, whether you're just kind of like putting stuff out into marketing, or if you're actually nurturing your own,
Mhm.
your own tribe. So yeah, I'm very mindful. I still do a mix of two things because I'm giving value in some of the things that I do every week, and then I have reels that just go out.
Yeah, yeah. I actually was playing with reels. I've only created like, I don't know, maybe 5 reels, you
Yeah,
know, on my entire journey. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
one day I just got an impulse to just play with it and it was
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
For a few
They
days
are
it was
fun.
fun,
Yeah,
but then it somehow, I don't know, went away, that excitement.
yeah,
And but this is where I am come in with my strategies. How do you structure your long form content and sales message that actually attracts people and holds them and keeps them there?
yeah,
There are strategies, there are ways to do it very gracefully in a very nice way. When you think about famous thought leaders and speakers, you can listen to them and you can listen to them the same speech many times
yeah,
because they move you. And I think this
yeah,
is what we are missing in marketing these days. Everything is about the value, that the verbal value,
yeah.
you know, rather than depth. So I think that's what's going on. We'll see where we're gonna end up with that. We'll see. I'm curious how much shorter shorts are gonna
Yeah,
become.
I've kind of heard that I think Instagram is wanting to go back to more long form
Mm,
video. I don't know what they class as long form. That could be 3 minutes. Who knows? But yeah, I think the shorts are almost like a kind of a little glimpse into your shop, and then if they're interested, they'll come in, and then you can kind of do more
yeah.
long form stuff. It's just a quick way of just letting people know that your shop's open, pretty much.
Yes. Yeah. So they might serve the purpose,
Yeah,
you know, yeah, it's interesting, so how do you access the Akashic records? How does that work? Like, or do people need to do something about it? Or do just wait for you to tell them whatever information you can access? What
Yeah.
happens?
So now we can all go into our Akashic records, and the most basic thing that you need is an intention. So if you intend to go into your Akashic records, you can go into your Akashic records. I put in a couple of protocols into my process so that from an ego's perspective, it feels safe and it knows that it's going into the right records, because that could always be just something in the back of my mind, or back of somebody's mind of, well, have I gone into the right person's Akashic records? What if I stepped into somebody else's? And you've lost that connection completely. So if I am introducing somebody to the Akashic records for the first time for them to go into their own record, then I would always recommend doing a journey, like a meditation, short meditation. Allow somebody to guide you into your Akashic records. But the way that I do it is that I take you up to the door of your records, even if you're not visual. I am very descriptive, and so that you can follow the journey, you can listen to it. Imagine yourself on that path. And when you get to your door, then I ask you to find your own details. So that's your full name, your date of birth, and place of birth. So then, your ego knows then, oh, we're at the right records. That's okay. So we can let go of that fear. And then I get you to step into your records. And so then it's a library and you're in your records. And usually at that point, people will feel a shift in their own energy. It will feel more comfortable. They will relax. And quite often, what people have me say, and the way that I feel it, it's like coming home, because you're in your soul's records. All of the knowledge, all of these experiences that you've ever had, all of the trauma, all of the gifts, all of that wisdom is held in the pages of the books all around you. You're in your own Akashic field. So it's very comforting. It's very nurturing, nourishing space to be in. So that's one way, through a journey. Although, that said, if you were a bit more practiced, and like me, you haven't got all of this time to sit around doing loads of like journeys and meditations, and you want to do it in quite a conscious way, then I will do it through a pendulum, or I will do a deck of cards. And I have my own Akashic Oracle card deck, which supports that whole process. Some people are more visual in terms of, and they want a hands-on tool. So having a pendulum where you can ask questions and have charts, or have a deck of cards, still following that protocol. I'm still going to open up the records. I'm going to still have an invocation that calls in the masters, the teachers, the angels, make sure I'm getting all of my wisdom and my insights from a place of truth and accuracy, 100%. Again, that's to help the ego just relax into this process. And then whatever you're receiving, whatever questions you're asking, whatever you're pulling, then you can be really sure that it's the truth. There isn't that second guessing that's there, because we've done a protocol at the beginning. Another way to do the Akashic Records connection is through automatic writing. So that's in a semi-conscious state, a little bit like visualization or journey. And you just basically get into a light, kind of relaxed state, and then you just open up your records, and then and just let your guides know that I'm actually going to take the information and I'm going to do it through writing. And so it can feel a little bit forced at the beginning, because maybe you've never done automatic writing before, but you'll just start to write your own name, write where you live, and then just relax into it. And just, even if you're just moving the pen across the paper, you may find that actually there's just these words that start to come through, and you just start to write. I would be curious about trying all the different types of ways that you can access, so that you find the methodology that works for you. And you will find there's probably a mix of ways that you would like to do it, depending on time, depending on what mood you're in, and depends what you have available to you as well. So,
Yeah.
sorry, go on.
No, sounds cool. So when you start working with somebody, so I imagine they come with a specific problem they want to resolve. So I imagine there's so much to access. There is so much information. So probably, I guess you mentioned that, right? You set an intention. Maybe you set a theme or something
Mm-hmm.
for that practice, what you want to resolve and where you need to to
Hmm.
look, right? Because when you said
Yeah.
the door opens, I guess there's so much, right? So you
Yeah.
probably direct people into.
When I'm doing a one-to-one session, that I don't take them into meditation, I don't do anything. It's a very conscious session, and I've done all the research beforehand. So when we come onto the call, we will be talking through what I found. We will be talking about strategies to move forward with the intentions that they want to realize within the next 6 months. And we will talk about the energetics that are coming from the blocks that are there, how that's influencing the person at the moment, what pattern perhaps or habit or behavior that that's creating. And so they've got an idea then, they've got consciousness awareness of what they need to do to kind of undo that, unpick that, not do that, you know. And then I do the clearing in a very conscious way at the end, and I just do that with a spin of a pendulum. So some people think I probably, when they come onto a session with me, they think that they're probably going to go into a meditation and it's all going to be like light and fluffy, and it's not. It's very conscious, it's very strategic. It's very hands-on in that sense. We talk because there's a lot of activation that happens through the conversation that we have, and there's actually a lot of healing that goes on in the background of those sessions. We talk about the alignment energies that are put back into the records. We talk about success anchors, because anchors of success are also like symbols that we can put into the records, into our present lifetime book, that help to influence the future. They help us to stay on track with our intentions, or they help to course correct back to that pathway. And that's chosen usually by the client. You know, what is the symbol of success for them? And we place that into the records. So there's lots of different parts to my one-to-one sessions. And that's basically what I teach on one of my certifications. It's that whole process of how to deliver a session like that.
Mhm. Do you have any interesting examples to share of what happens for people while working with you?
Yeah, so there's one lady, so she's not a business owner at all, and she'd been following me for a good while. And she was really struggling with she had a couple of types of allergies, but she had a really strong allergy to smells, scents. So, you know, like washing powder, fabric conditioner, perfume. So it was that strong, and she had this for 20 years. And it was that strong that when she was on her shift in work, the people that she was working with weren't able to go in with any deodorant on, any scents or anything, because she would just start to come out with her eyes streaming, like, you know, come out in I don't know if she had physical rash, but, you know, her eyes, and, you know, it would be like she had hay fever. That would be the reaction that she would have. And so we literally did 2 sessions, and there was a massive difference between the first session. Like, from doing the first session, she had a massive, like, you know, everything was kind of like releasing, it was going. She was able to kind of be in the room with people that had got things on. She was able to go on holiday for the first time and not worry about what the sheets had been washed in that she was staying in terms of the hotel, or, you know, wherever. And it all came back to when she was, I think, 15, her ex-boyfriend, her first love of her life, cheated on her with her best friend. And at the time, when she found out, at that time, he had a really strong aftershave on.
Mhm.
And she had linked that trauma with the scent of, you know, it was never that specific aftershave, that, you know, it was just like localized too. It ended up becoming anything like scent wise, but there was just something within her body, something in terms of a connection that was making that connection all of the time with this trauma that she hadn't clearly released or got over. So we did a little bit of work around that particular association, but there was lots of past life stuff also that we cleared and released. And really kind of worked with the body elemental, which is an unconscious part of our physical body that helps the body functions, the things that we don't think about, just to kind of keep going. We had to really work with the body elemental as well, just to let it know that it was safe to be in those types of environments where there was scents, where there were smells, and it didn't need to go into any kind of reaction. So we did quite a bit of work with the body elemental as well. But yeah, she's absolutely fine now. She's like, and we've worked on her smoking as well. I'm not sure where she's up to with her smoking because we worked on that last year. But in terms of like having these allergies and all of that, that's completely gone.
Wow, that is powerful. So you mentioned safety so a few times, I think. So do you think that everything kind of comes down to, like if we have blocks, if something, or we keep hitting the glass ceiling,
Hmm.
everything comes down to something inside of us trying to protect us and keep us safe?
Yeah, quite often there is because there's always the uncomfortableness, the discomfort of growth and being out of our comfort zone. There's always going to be unconsciously, subconsciously, this sense of, there's always going to be a fear attached to that. And so even though we know that we want things to change because it feels intolerable, we've got to that point where I can't suffer with this any longer. There is still going to be a part of us that will be like, well, I know we want this, but
Yeah.
it's safer, it's easier, it's less hassle. We're very good at rationalizing why we need to stay in our comfort zone. And I find that our threshold for tolerance and obligation and duty is really high because we fear what's in the unknown. And it's, we know it's part of our human condition, it's part of our wiring, that we're needing to just bring awareness to and just notice what our way of doing that is, because we all have our different ways. There's like self-sabotage, procrastination, confusion, tiredness, illness, things breaking down around us. This can be all our ego activating and playing up because it's trying to keep us in a certain place. And we just need to be aware about that. And actually, if that's really showing up strongly because we've decided this is what I'm working on, this is what I want to change, there will always be resistance that shows up in some shape or form. And you want to celebrate that. It's like, oh my God, I'm really onto something here because I am feeling the resistance. I am telling myself this, I've got sick, there's drama coming from my family or my partner. Okay, so I know that this is the path that I need to actually continue on because there's always a breakdown before the breakthrough. So it's just having the awareness of what the what I call the growth journey. It's having awareness of what the growth journey is and what the different elements are. And if you know what those elements are, you can kind of almost map out your progress. Keep going, keep remembering your why, which is, we've always got to remember our why because that's the thing that keeps us like determined and motivated. And eventually we will have that breakthrough, but you'll have all sorts of things thrown at you along the way, and that's
Yes.
part of the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when you were talking about resistance, I was thinking that generally in the mainstream personal development, I think the idea is to convince yourself to get over it.
Yeah.
We don't even register that as inner resistance, I think. We are just like, oh, what the hell is wrong with me?
Yeah, we make
I was
ourselves
telling
out of
myself
wrong.
I was gonna do this and now I'm not doing this.
Yeah, so we gaslight ourselves completely. There's a complete lack of self-compassion and empathy. And I think, yeah, if we can, and I think some of us are kind of understanding and we are a bit kinder to ourselves and recognize, okay, this is what's going on here. I'll give myself a little bit more time and space, but I know that, this is the end result. This is what I want to happen, but I'm just going to also facilitate what's going on in my body, what fears are coming up. And, some of it will be inner child stuff. And it's just like it's soothing the body, it's nourishing, it's nurturing, it's talking to the body and just letting it know in the ego, it's okay. It's absolutely fine, rather than berating ourselves and, like you say, what's wrong with me? And I always do this, and why can't I, do this, do that. And it's like, no, that's the wrong approach as well.
Yeah, I know, it felt so liberating when I realized, oh, okay, right. So I'm not doing this thing. Like I guess people don't bring their being down into multiple layers. There's consciousness, there's this,
Mm.
there's that, subconsciousness, body, energy, whatever. Like we understand ourselves as this one single unit where everything somehow needs to resolve. But now I remember and it was always like that in my personal life. Somehow it wasn't integrating in my business for a while. But then when it did, I was, oh, okay, so it's not my fault. Okay, it's my ego doing this thing, but where, my subconsciousness is doing this other thing,
Yeah.
and it's actually leading the way, So I was,
Yeah. Your soul, your intuition. Yeah. All of that. Yeah. Totally.
yeah, so what do you think about these affirmations, maybe attempts to manifest that actually, and I remember I realized, oh, this is normal when I didn't even feel good, that good. There's a statement you kind of, in Think and Grow Rich, I think there is a statement you kind of write down and you need to repeat it, in the morning and in the
Mhm.
evening before bed. And I was like, okay, I was reading and I was doing it, I was working on myself, but it didn't feel right.
Okay.
So what do you think happens? And maybe what people should try and do instead of just putting affirmations that don't resonate with them all over the place.
I would stop doing it because you're doing it from a place of obligation. So all you're going to attract back is
Mm.
obligation. So it's like it's finding a way to manifest or work towards your intentions or the goals or whatever it is that you would love to experience, trying to find the ways where it's more playful, it's more fun, it's more happy, it's more joyous. And of course we're not going to be in all that vibration all of the time because we do live in a on a planet that does have the law of polarity and duality on it. So we're always going to have the highs and lows because our soul wants to experience the full richness of a range of emotions or circumstances, loss, abundance, all of that type of stuff. But if we're manifesting, I mean, just in the word manifesting, you want to really infuse the kind of like this feels really fun, this feels really good. I feel curious, I feel playful, I feel pleasurable, I feel held. All of these really beautiful vibrations where you feel that's a much better place to manifest from. But it might be that you can only do that once a month, because most of the
Mhm.
time we're too busy or we just haven't got the time or space for it, or we're just feeling hassled and overwhelmed. Again, don't build yourself up for that, beat yourself up about that. It's just like, well, in
Mhm.
that 1 minute in the month where I do feel like I'm just in that beautiful vibration, I am going to choose to manifest. I would do it from like, if you could find a place to go and do it when you're having an orgasm, that's a great place to go and manifest from. Or in other places, like certainly with like maybe soul sisters or family members, where you just know you're going to feel good in their company, then just put out an affirmation whilst you're in that energy of feeling really good. Or after a meditation, or you've received a healing and you feel really peaceful. Okay, I'm just going to put out a manifestation.
Mhm.
But if you have to then repeat it over and over and over again, and then it becomes obligation and duty, and you then really trying hard because nothing is showing up, then you've kind of cancelled out everything that you've just done there. I would say just know you do it in that one time, in that beautiful energy, and just know that that's enough, and then trust.
Yeah, I think for me personally, what you were saying about repeating it, for me, it's more about the nagging thoughts that are coming through in terms of, okay, this is not happening, or I don't know, whether it's gonna happen or whatever, and I get anxious about it potentially. So what do you think we should do when that happens?
Well, you first of all, you need to notice that you're doing it. So have the awareness, okay, I've just gone into pushing, hustle, lack and scarcity, because that's basically what that is. You've gone out of trust, you've gone out of faith in yourself, in the universe, in your guides, and you've got to learn to have this period of gestation where things can actually, the universe can do its thing. Things can be brought into your awareness, um, can be brought into being. There has to be a little bit of time and space for that to happen. When we have these, like, so for instance, for me, I talk about having this like miracle kind of like 10-second clearing in my Akashic Records of my psychological addiction to alcohol. But the lead up to that, in terms of me reducing my alcohol intake, becoming really aware of how I felt when I did have a drink, that was an 18-month journey. And it's just that I noticed that I could not just get on top of the whole thought thing, the mind thing. And I did not admit this to anybody either, that I
Mhm.
was struggling with this. There was a real shame around asking for help as well. And so my guides did step in. There was somebody, it was divinely timed. There was synchronicity there for me to receive that support, because it was almost like, and I'd not officially put this out as an intention, but they, my guides and whatever, was I was deciding subconsciously, I was leading myself to having that breakthrough. But divine intervention then kind of stepped in and was able to support me with that. My higher self, my guides, my angels were able to help me with that. It seems like a miracle, but it's not. There's been a slow lead up to that. So I think that's just demonstrating there's the period of gestation, of integration, of things like being put in place for the breakthrough to happen. And I think that's what we've got to remember, that there is a little bit of time, patience that is needed. And
Yeah,
we're
miracles,
not very
right?
good at patience, especially in the environment that we live in at the moment.
Right. Yeah, yeah, I know, right? And then you mentioned miracles. I'm so glad seeing that so many things that we used to call miracles are actually not. It's such a fun thing, to notice. And so how important do you think is to cleanse and clear those whatever blocks people have and step into that sense of freedom or whatever you call it in your case,
Mhm.
flow, ease, and work from that place? What happens when that happens for people?
Well, I find that most people are coming to me because they want to fast track the process. And that's what saying, get a fresh pair of eyes on the situation, get to the root causes of wherever they are located, whatever lifetime. And you don't have to believe in past lives for that, or reincarnation for that to happen. But it's just getting somebody else to dig out the root cause and then release that. So for me, it's a fast tracking way of you to be able to step into your soul alignment, to maybe get the awareness, to feel lighter, to have the time and space to be able to then go much deeper, or have more confidence to go much deeper with something else that's more pressing in your life, but you didn't have the confidence, the courage, the bravery, or even the headspace to then look at that. So some people, are coming to me for, say, client attraction, money flow, things like that, but actually their health is really not great, their balance is not great, and that's usually the thing that's impacting the client attraction. So we can clear
Mhm.
these blocks, and then what they can end up doing is going to look at their health and the balance and things like that, or their relationships or whatever it might be, which then has the positive impact on the initial intention that they came to me for. So we always think that we want to work on this, but actually the root cause of what we actually
Yeah.
need to work on is usually something completely different. And
So,
that's okay. And that's why, we would seek out a professional to help that, because our ego or our logical part of us would be like, well, this is where the route's going to be because it makes sense. And I totally get that. But actually, energetically, it could be completely in a different place. And that's perfect.
It's fascinating. So what happens then for people? So I know my from my own experience, like I knew I could feel for a while things were off, like I
Yeah,
was not stepping into my power, and I knew it existed somewhere,
yeah,
but I was not able to pinpoint. I was so lost. I was so overwhelmed. I
yeah.
was confused. And it was agonizing because I knew that. I was aware of that, but I was not able to access that place to pinpoint. How do I so where can people start when if they are in this kind of situation?
For me, I would empower yourself to start clearing the energy fields. And for me, it's the Akashic Records. So I have, and I'm sure there's other people that would have this as well, something similar, is to start going listening to some healing journeys, healing transmissions off YouTube. So you're empowering yourself to just start to clear some of the noise that potentially could be coming from the collective, but because you are so energetically sensitive, or you haven't got like a kind of a spiritual hygiene practice in place, then that's taking up a lot of energy. It's having you feel heavy. It's having you
Mhm.
feel confused. So start to clear through some of that. Start to look at, have I got a spiritual hygiene practice in place, and do I need to start putting one in? And that's just really to cleanse your energy. For instance, with the violet flame every morning, and then place yourself in a golden bubble of light, or do you work with crystals and have the crystals do that job for you? So there's certain things that you can start to do that can start to shift your energy, so it starts to just bring in those rays of light where you're starting to feel like there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. It's not feeling as overwhelming. And then what I would do from a strategic place is to actually look at everything that's on your plate and what can you actually let go of. And if there's real fear about letting go of some of those things, why is the fear there? Is it a limiting belief? Is it an actual experience that perhaps there's still trauma attached to because you made a choice around that same thing and it all went wrong, for instance? So you don't want to repeat that. It could be family beliefs that are being projected and you're just kind of holding on to those. What can you really bring down in your life? What is the priority that you need to take action on? And really start to break everything down into the minutest steps. The more smaller we have our steps that we can then take action on, um, the greater progress and momentum we're going to create. And we're going to start to feel good because we are actually knowing that we're taking action. But you've got to really kind of take out all of the weeds energetically, but also what you're placing on your plate or saying yes to when you really mean no. And actually just look at what is really important for me at the moment. Am I saying yes to all of these different things in the week, at night time, saying yes to being on group calls and attending all of these things when I actually just want to go and have a bath and get into bed early? They're the types of things that we need to just start
Yes.
reclaiming our energy back. When we reclaim our energy back, we can then start to see what's important. And then we can make a to-do list from that point. But that for me is like, that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something very important. I think when we create plans or vision and taking action on something, we tend to think in these big chunks,
Oh, massive. Yeah.
right? And then it's kind of hard to implement and you don't really see what it is you need to actually do on micro level.
Yeah.
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 So on that note, if somebody's finding themselves, if the listener is finding herself in a place where she's confused, she's lost, she knows that this blockage is somewhere and she's not getting what she wants for a while now, what is one tiny shift that she could start with today?
Um, what is the one tiny shift? I would sit with the to-do lists or I would sit down and write out all of the things that are on her plate. And then I would sit, come back into the heart, breathe my energy back into my heart. And then intuitively, from a place of maybe desire or joy, contentment, satisfaction, tune into which one, and you might want to number those different, say, projects or things that are going on, number them, and then ask your higher self just to step forward with the number and just intuitively go off the first number that just comes into your mind, what you feel, and then have a look at the list and see what that one is. And that is probably, if you set the intention of what's going to have the biggest impact, positive impact in terms of me moving forward, getting things off my plate, me, stepping into satisfaction or contentment or whatever, your higher self will help and they will give you the one action. And it might not make sense. It'd be like, well, that doesn't make sense. It's not a very big action, or it would be the last thing that I would have thought of doing. But trust your higher self
Mhm.
and just do something off that particular, you look at that and you'd be like, okay, well, if I was to split that down now into 10 actions, what would that look like? What would those 10 actions be? And okay, I'm going to start with the first one. And firstly, what that does is it shows that you're trusting yourself and you're trusting your intuition and you're allowing yourself to have more of a co-creative experience with your higher self, which is always going to, give you the right information and the best information for you to act on. But it's also just helping you to focus on something. But what you're doing is you're getting stuff out of your mind, but you're also then tuning back into your body, so there's this really using the divine masculine and the divine feminine together. We're using the logic and we're using the
Mm,
intuition.
makes so much sense. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, no, I think that's just a good practice, because if you're not ever used to doing stuff like that, then you might just find that it's like, oh my God, this is a really a great way of working. And then you may continue to do that with other things.
Yeah, it was a few years ago now when I realized I heard something somewhere and I realized, you know what, let me just do one main thing a
Mm.
day. And I got
Yeah,
rid of to-do lists. So one
yeah,
main thing today in my business, one main big thing, at home, and so on. And it
yeah.
was like, oh, wow, that's working and it feels so great,
Yeah, you get your dopamine hits because you're crossing off your things on your list, and it's like, and you're seeing the progress and you feel motivated, so it creates momentum, and then things just are a little bit easier after that because you've started to get going. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you did tell about who you work with and what you do. So maybe there is something you would like to add, and also where can people find you?
Okay, so people can find me on social media. So it's Marina the Soul Alchemist. So that's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. So I've got my own YouTube channel and LinkedIn as well, and TikTok, actually, on TikTok.
Oh,
And my website is Marina Beech, that's BWCH.co.uk. So you can find me there as well. And yeah, what I would say is if you're very new to Akashic Record work, then go check out my YouTube channel, because what I post there each week is a weekly guidance. So you get to pick your own card, and then I will reveal what those messages are. And they are healing readings. So they're not very long to listen to, but it gives you a bit of insights for the week. But you're also going to be receiving a little bit of a transmission for your highest good that's just going to help you through that week as well. I'm also part of my YouTube channel. There's more than 100 Akashic meditation journeys, which are all different types of themes like business, money, um, confidence, prosperity. There's all sorts of things on there. There's more than 100, so you can find something that you can just like plug into your ears, chill out, go on a bit of a journey, and receive the healing. And just, factor that in whenever you can. If you want to do it before bedtime and just fall asleep whilst you're listening to that, then that's fine. That, all of that still works. Your higher self and guides manage the process instead. So that's all perfect. So yeah, start to just empower yourself with your energy. That's what I would say.
Yeah, sounds amazing. So everyone listening should go and find Marina. And it's the dessert time. I ask all my guests. I ask three blitz questions, very quick questions,
Okay.
at the end of the episode. So the first question is, what change would you like to see in the world?
Um, Peace, will peace.
Yes, so important, especially now with what's going on externally, internally, all things. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it just world peace. I don't think that yeah, I don't need to. I don't think I need to expand on that. It's just
I know, exactly, exactly. Yeah, and so the second question is, what legacy would you personally like to create in the world?
well, I'm definitely on a mission. So what I've come to realize in the past couple of months that my Oracle card deck is my legacy because it's the hands-on way to get into the Akashic Records. And also these cards are not just an Oracle tool, they're also a healing tool. They have healing portals within the cards, which is a bit of a kind of, it's taken me a little while to get my head round because I'm not sensory, so I can't feel the energy of the cards. Um, but there is a lot of people that own the deck of cards that can feel the portals of healing and activation within the cards. And I've even got like one lady that's done the certification, she's got the cards and she's completely blind. And she tells me about the portals in the cards. And it's just like, okay, well, that's a really good endorsement. So for me, is to get as many of these decks out into the world as possible because they're their own kind of like beacon of light that then can obviously just
Wow.
create the ripple effect. So that's my legacy. I have done a little meditation recently, and the number that was given to me by my higher self after I'd actually died, this was kind of like a future self. I was meeting my future self, not realizing that I'd actually passed on, and I was kind of coming from a soul place. And I could see all of these like lights all around the planet, and that was like all of my decks kind of like lighting each other up, from each deck to each deck. And my higher self said, you've got at least 20,000 decks that has been part of your legacy that you've placed out into the world. So 20,000 decks.
Amazing. Well, and I don't know if it's even relevant to say, I wish you that, achieving that legacy goal. I don't know, wishing is probably relevant, is it? I don't know. I
Well,
don't
no, intending. I'll take the
know.
intention. I'll take the intention.
Right.
I'm just ordering my second 500. So I've nearly sold 500. So I'm about to
Wow.
get in. So,
Wow.
we're on our way. We're on our way.
Very cool. And so the last one is, when you hear from grind to grace, what goes through your mind, energy, through your field?
Oh, relief.
Oh.
Relief. Yeah, like huge waves of relief.
Hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Alignment, um, grace, and peace.
Yeah, very cool. Love it. Love it. Okay, thank you so much. It
Thank you.
was
Thank you
so
for having
interesting. I have more questions. So we'll see.
me. Might come back for a part two.
Yeah. But it was so interesting and it's so fun, so rewarding to see all these things coming up and spreading and all these people like you working with amazing legacy goals and everything. It's so refreshing. You know, so cool. And yeah, thank you so much for being with me, sharing your wisdom,
Thank you. Thank you for inviting
sharing
me.
your energy. And to the listener, obviously, there is no doubt you heard something that resonated with you, you got value. Go find Marina, follow, dive into her world, and also spread the message. That's how we have our own mission as well. Freedom first. It's called Freedom First. So we need to share this. So if you know anyone who would benefit from this, please share, follow the podcast yourself. And thanks for tuning in. And I'll talk to you next week again.